The great chamber fell silent. 12 species sat in the Galactic Council, and for the first time in 3,000 years, every single one of them was afraid. Ambassador Oran stood at the center of the room. His 4 arms trembled as he held the data crystal. They were known for their calm nature. They did not show fear. But today, Oran's silver skin had turned pale gray. "Show them," said Counselor, the eldest member of the council. Her voice was soft but carried through the massive hall. Oran placed the crystal into the projector. The lights dimmed. A holographic image appeared above them all, showing a planet covered in dark clouds. "This is Helix 9, Oran said. 3 weeks ago, it was a slave colony owned by the Syndicate. Everyone in the room knew they were the most brutal species in the galaxy. They stood 8 feet tall, covered in black scales with claws that could cut through metal. For 500 years, they had taken slaves from weaker species. No one dared to stop them. They had never lost a war. The colony held 12,000 slaves from 6 different species," Oran continued. "It was protected by 300 soldiers, orbital defense platforms, and energy shields that could stop any known weapon." The hologram changed. It showed the colony from above, surrounded by lights and guard towers. "This footage was recorded by a security drone," Oran said. His voice became quieter. "Watch carefully." The council watched. At first nothing happened. The colony sat quiet under the night sky. Guards walked their routes. Lights blinked on the towers. Then one by one, the lights went dark. It started at the outer edge. A guard tower went black, then another, then another. The darkness spread like a disease, moving toward the center of the colony. On the footage, they could see soldiers running, shouting, firing their weapons into the shadows. They were firing at nothing. Or so it seemed. One by one, the soldiers fell. Some dropped without a sound. Others spun around, shooting wildly, before something pulled them into the darkness. The footage showed heat signatures appearing and disappearing, moving faster than any known species could move. In 12 minutes, it was over. The council sat in stunned silence. Counselor K of the hegemony leaned forward. His reptilian eyes were wide. "The slaves?" he asked. "All 12,000 were freed," Oran answered. "They were found the next morning at a neutral station, unharmed, fed, given medical care." "And the soldiers?" "Dead, all 300 of them." A murmur went through the council. 300 elite soldiers, killed in 12 minutes by an enemy they never saw. "Who did this?" demanded Admiral, representative of the oldest military power in the galaxy. "What species has this capability? The Combine." Oran shook his head slowly. "We recovered one survivor, Commander Al. He lived for 6 hours before dying of his wounds." The ambassador paused. "His injuries were unusual. Our medical experts could not explain how they were inflicted." "What did he say?" asked. Oran touched the crystal again. A voice filled the chamber, broken and filled with terror. It was the commander speaking his final words. "They came from nowhere, from the shadows. We couldn't see them, couldn't hear them. They moved through walls, through locked doors. They killed without sound." The voice broke into something that might have been a sob. "They're not soldiers, they're not warriors, they're nightmares, living nightmares." The recording ended. The chamber was completely silent. "We traced the attack," Oran said. "We found evidence of a ship, a small vessel, human design." The word hung in the air like poison. "Human." The youngest species in the galactic community. They had been admitted only 40 years ago, a small civilization from a small planet in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. They were friendly, curious. They traded fairly and kept to themselves. They were not supposed to be dangerous. "Impossible," said Counselor of the Union. Humans are soft. They have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. Their senses are weak. They cannot even see in darkness." "And yet," Oran replied, "the evidence is clear." Admiral slammed his fist on the table. Then we demand an explanation. We summon the human ambassador. I have already spoken with the human ambassador, interrupted. Her ancient eyes were troubled. She confirmed the attack. She said it was carried out by what humans call special forces. Special forces, Kay repeated. What does this mean? It is a human military term. It refers to small teams of warriors trained for impossible missions, rescue operations, assassinations, sabotage. Paused. They are called many names: operators, ghosts, shadows. She looked around the chamber at her fellow counselors. The humans have hundreds of these teams. The fear in the room became something heavier, something close to panic. Why did they attack someone asked. The slaves on Helix 9 included members of the species, Oran explained. They signed a protection treaty with humanity last year. The humans warned to release them. They refused. So the humans sent these special forces. 6 of them, Oran said quietly. 6 operators against 300 soldiers in a fortified colony. No one spoke. 6 warriors, just 6, and they had done this. Admiral stood slowly. His scales had lost their color. We must know more. We must understand what these humans truly are. For 5,000 years, my people have been the greatest military power in the galaxy. We have defeated every enemy, conquered every threat. He looked at the frozen hologram, at the darkness that had swallowed the colony. But this is something new, something we have never seen before. Nodded slowly. She was older than anyone in the room, had seen empires rise and fall, had watched species destroy themselves in countless wars, but she had never felt fear like this. I asked the human ambassador what makes these warriors so effective, she said. She smiled at me. It was not a cruel smile, it was almost sad, and she said something I will never forget. The council waited. She said, "We have been fighting ourselves for 10,000 years. Every war, every battle, every conflict in our history was human against human. We learned to kill the most dangerous predator in our evolution, each other. Your species developed warfare against external threats. We sharpen our claws on our own kind." His voice dropped to a whisper. And then she said, "Against that kind of training, against that kind of experience, you never stood a chance." The council chamber remained silent for a long time. Finally, Counselor K spoke the question that haunted them all. What have we invited into our stars? No one had an answer. Far away on a small blue planet called Earth, 6 warriors returned home from their mission. They cleaned their weapons. They filed their reports. They had dinner with their families. And the galaxy learned a new word for terror. Nightmares. General stood before the observation window and watched his guests arrive. 5 aliens, representatives from 5 different council species, sent to study human military capabilities. They walked across the training compound with careful steps, looking around at everything like children in a strange forest. They expected to find monsters. Knew this. The whole galaxy was whispering about what happened on Helix 9. They called human operators ghosts and demons and nightmares. They thought humanity had some secret weapon, some hidden technology that made their warriors invincible. They were wrong. The truth was simpler and far more terrifying. Met them in the briefing room. The aliens sat in specially designed chairs that fit their different body shapes. There was a with silver skin, a reptilian, a tall, and 2 others whose names could never quite pronounce. "Welcome to Special Operations Command," said. "I know why you're here. You want to understand what we are, how we do what we do." The ambassador, a female named, leaned forward. "The Council believes humanity poses a threat. Others believe you could be valuable allies. We are here to learn the truth." Nodded, he had expected nothing less. "Then let me show you the truth." He dimmed the lights and activated the holographic display. Images appeared in the air, showing humans throughout history. Ancient warriors with swords and shields, soldiers with primitive guns, modern operators with advanced equipment. Humans have existed for about 300,000 years, began. For almost all of that time, we have been at war. War with whom? They asked. You had no contact with other species until recently. Smiled, but there was no humor in it. With each other. He let that sink in. The aliens exchanged confused looks. Your species developed warfare to defend against external threats, continued. Predators, other species, environmental dangers, but humans. We had no great external enemy, so we became our own enemy. Tribe against tribe, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. The hologram showed battlefields throughout human history, armies clashing with swords, trenches filled with soldiers, cities burning under bombs. For 10,000 years, we perfected the art of killing the most dangerous creature we knew, ourselves. We developed strategies to defeat beings of equal intelligence, equal creativity, equal desperation. We learned to fight enemies who could adapt as fast as we could, who could match every weapon we created, who understood our tactics because they thought exactly like us. The representative shifted uncomfortably. His compound eyes flickered with what might have been fear. When we finally reached the stars, said, we hoped the wars were over. We hoped we could leave that part of ourselves behind. But we kept our warriors. We kept our training. Because we knew that the universe is dangerous and somewhere out there, something might threaten our people again. He changed the hologram to show modern training facilities. Men and women ran through obstacle courses, practiced hand-to-hand combat, trained with weapons that made no sound. This is what they faced. Warriors trained for generations against the only enemy that ever truly challenged us, against opponents who think like predators, who adapt like survivors, who never give up because giving up means extinction. Silver Skin had grown pale. You are saying, your warriors are effective because they were trained to fight humans. I'm saying that compared to fighting other humans, fighting aliens is easy. The room fell silent. Gestured toward the window. Would you like to see a demonstration? He led them to an observation deck overlooking a training facility. Below, a squad of 6 operators prepared to enter a building. The aliens watched through specially designed screens that showed heat signatures and movement patterns. This is a standard training exercise, explained. The building contains 20 armed opponents using simulation weapons. The objective is to clear all rooms and neutralize all targets. 20 against 6, they said. Those are poor odds. Watch. The exercise began. The operators moved like water flowing through cracks. They communicated without speaking, using hand signals and subtle movements that their alien observers couldn't follow. They entered the building through multiple points simultaneously, moving in perfect coordination. The first opponent fell before he even knew the operators were there. Then the second. Then the third. The operators flowed through rooms like shadows, appearing and disappearing, striking from angles that seemed impossible. One of the alien observers, a small being with large eyes from a species didn't recognize, suddenly clutched its head and collapsed. Medics rushed forward. What happened? Demanded. Checked with the medical team. The grenade, the light and sound frequencies, they overwhelmed his neural system. The small alien was carried away, still twitching. The others watched with growing horror. Below, the exercise ended. 20 opponents neutralized in 4 minutes. No operator casualties. That was training, said quietly. Against real enemies, they're faster. Later, they sat in a conference room. The aliens had requested time to process what they had seen. Gave them coffee, a human drink they all found strange but acceptable. I don't understand, they said. His translator rendered his clicks and whistles into words. Why? Why did your species develop this way? Why so much war among yourselves? thought about the question for a long moment. We don't know, he admitted. Maybe it's in our nature. Maybe it was necessary for survival. Our planet was harsh. Resources were limited. Competition was fierce. He shrugged. Whatever the reason, it made us what we are. And what are you? Asked. The door opened before could answer. 6 people walked in, still wearing their training gear. 3 men, 3 women, all of them unremarkable in appearance. Average height, normal builds. Nothing about them suggested danger. But the aliens felt it. Something in the way these humans moved, the way their eyes scanned the room, the quiet confidence in their posture. These were not normal people. This is Viper Team, said. The same operators who completed Helix 9. The representative stood up so fast he knocked over his chair. His scales had gone white with fear. These are the ones who killed 300 warriors. A woman stepped forward. She had brown hair and calm gray eyes. Nothing about her seemed threatening, but somehow she was the most terrifying person in the room. I'm Captain Vance, she said. I led the Helix 9 operation. The alien stared at her. She was smaller than most of them. She had no claws, no fangs, no armor. By every measure, she should have been weak. But none of them could meet her eyes for more than a few seconds. Hal whispered, "How did you do it?" Smiled softly. It was not a cruel expression. It was almost sad. They are strong, she said. They're big and tough and scary, but they've never fought anything like us. They've conquered weaker species. They've bullied smaller civilizations. But they've never faced an enemy that was smarter than them, faster than them, and more determined than them. She paused. They learned to fight prey. We learned to fight predators. And there's no predator more dangerous than a human with something to protect. General stood beside his operators. He saw the fear in the alien's eyes, the same fear that was spreading across the galaxy. You asked what we are, he said too. We are humans. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us every day for 300,000 years. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters that should have destroyed us. And we did it by adapting, by learning, by refusing to die. He gestured at Viper Team. These are the best of us, the ones who run toward danger when everyone else runs away, the ones who go into the darkness so others don't have to. They're not monsters, they're protectors. Vance nodded. We didn't choose to be nightmares, she said. But when innocent people are suffering, when slavers are preying on the helpless, when someone needs to be stopped. Her gray eyes seemed to darken. We're happy to be theirs. The message arrived on every screen in the galaxy at the same moment. It showed a burning city under an orange sky. Bodies lay in the streets, small, bodies with delicate wings now broken and still. A massive warlord stood in the center of the destruction. His black scales glistened with blood that was not his own. Humanity, he growled into the camera. You think you can strike at us without consequences. You think your nightmares make you safe. Watch carefully. Behind him, soldiers dragged survivors into view. Mothers, children, elders. The warlord drew his blade. 40,000 of these insects lived on this colony. 40,000 who thought human protection meant something. Let this be a lesson to the galaxy. Let this be a message to Earth. The blade fell. The screen went dark. Across the galaxy, species watched and waited for humanity's response. They expected threats. They expected demands. They expected rage. They got silence. 3 weeks passed. Humanity said nothing. Their ambassadors attended council meetings as if nothing had happened. Their traders continued their routes. Their colonies went about their business. They celebrated. They had proven that humanity was weak. Their nightmares were just stories, just tricks. When faced with real power, the humans backed down. On the fortress world of, the 7 greatest warlords of the Syndicate gathered to celebrate their victory. They drank and feasted in the ancient halls of their ancestors. 12,000 elite warriors guarded them. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet. Energy shields protected every building. They were untouchable. High above the planet, a small ship drifted through the atmosphere of a nearby gas giant. It was designed to look like debris, just another piece of space junk tumbling through the void. Inside, 6 humans checked their equipment one final time. Captain Vance pulled on her helmet and looked at her team. Sergeant Cole, the biggest of them, cracked his knuckles. Lieutenant adjusted her rifle scope. Petty Officer Williams checked his explosives. Corporal sharpened her knife. And the youngest, Private Torres, took a deep breath. "You all know the mission," said. 7 targets, in and out before dawn, no evidence, no survivors among the leadership. "And the 12,000 guards?" Sergeant Cole asked. His eyes were cold. "Avoid when possible, eliminate when necessary." "What about the shields, the orbital platforms?" Torres asked. His voice was steady but could see his hands shaking slightly. "That's why we're dropping through the gas giant's atmosphere," she explained. "The electromagnetic interference will mask our descent. We'll come in under their sensors, through a maintenance shaft in the northern complex." "And getting out?" Smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "We walk out the front door. After tonight, there won't be anyone left to stop us." The drop was brutal. They fell through layers of toxic gas, buffeted by winds that could crush a normal human. Their suits kept them alive, but barely. Torres threw up inside his helmet. No one commented on it. They landed in darkness on the edge of the fortress complex. They didn't patrol this area. It was too close to the waste processing systems, and the smell kept even their hardened soldiers away. Humans, with their weaker sense of smell, found it unpleasant but manageable. Led them through maintenance tunnels that weren't on any official map. Human intelligence had spent years building a complete picture of defenses. They knew every guard rotation, every sensor blind spot, every locked door that could be bypassed. They had never faced an enemy who prepared like this. They were used to brute force, to overwhelming numbers, to crushing their opponents with raw power. They didn't understand patience. They didn't understand infiltration. The first warlord died in his sleep, slipped into his chambers through an air vent that the thought was too small for any threat. She was small enough to fit. One silent shot, and Warlord Axe never woke up. The second died on his way to the bathroom. Williams waited in the shadows for 3 hours without moving, barely breathing, until the moment was perfect. A blade across the throat, a body hidden in a closet. The third and fourth were together, playing some kind of game in a private room. Cole and came through the ceiling. The fight lasted 8 seconds. Neither warlord even had time to scream. By now, the security forces knew something was wrong. Alarms began to sound. Guards rushed through the corridors, weapons ready, searching for an enemy they couldn't find. But the humans were already gone, moving through the walls like ghosts, always one step ahead. The fifth warlord locked himself in his command center, surrounded by 50 of his best warriors. He thought he was safe. He was wrong. Torres, the youngest member of Viper Team, crawled through a service conduit for 200 meters, barely wider than his shoulders. He emerged in the ventilation system directly above the command center. He dropped a single device through the vent, a gas grenade that worked faster than anything they had ever seen. 50 warriors collapsed in their tracks. The warlord had time to reach for his communicator before Torres dropped down beside him. "They send their regards," Torres whispered. The warlord died with terror in his eyes. The sixth warlord tried to run. He made it to his personal ship, launched into the sky, thought he had escaped, but was waiting in the cockpit. She had boarded 3 hours earlier and waited in a storage compartment no one would think to check. "How?" he gasped. "We're very patient," she replied. Throughout the fortress, chaos reigned. Commanders screamed orders into communicators that no one answered. Guards shot at shadows. Alarms wailed endlessly. but the humans were everywhere and nowhere, striking and vanishing like smoke. In the Great Hall, the seventh and final warlord gathered his remaining forces. High Lord himself, supreme leader of the syndicate, stood with 2,000 of his best warriors. He would make his stand here, in the hall of his ancestors. The lights went out. Darkness fell so completely that even eyes, which could see heat signatures, found nothing. Someone had disabled the thermal regulators, flooding the hall with cold air that masked everything. In the darkness, the humans moved. They didn't attack directly. That would have been suicide even for them. Instead, they sowed chaos. A shot from one direction, an explosion from another. Guards fired at each other in confusion. Warriors trampled their own allies trying to find an enemy they couldn't see. And through it all, Viper Team moved closer to the High Lord. When the lights finally came back on, found himself alone. His guards were dead or scattered. His defenses were broken. And 6 humans stood before him, their weapons trained on his chest. "You killed 40,000, said. "Innocent people, children." Snarled, "They were insects, nothing. They were under our protection." "Your protection means nothing. You are weak, soft, you don't have the strength to." Moved faster than could follow. Suddenly she was beside him, her knife at his throat. "We're not weak," she said softly. "We're patient, we're precise, and we don't kill because we enjoy it. We kill because some people leave us no choice." "What do you want?" demanded. For the first time in his long life he felt fear. "We want you to understand. You took something from us, our friends, our allies, innocent people who trusted us to keep them safe. We failed them. We won't fail again. If you kill me, the Syndicate will. The Syndicate is finished. By morning, every other warlord will be dead. Your fleets will have no one to command them. Your empire will collapse into infighting and chaos." She leaned closer. "And everyone in the galaxy will know what happens when you harm the innocent people under human protection." The knife moved. At dawn, the forces on discovered that all 7 of their warlords were dead. The orbital platforms had never fired. The shields had never activated. 12,000 elite warriors had failed to stop 6 humans. In the Great Hall, they found High Lord's body. Beside it was a single human symbol, a flag made of white cloth, with a simple message written in blood. "The debt is paid." Across the galaxy, the news spread like fire. The Syndicate, the most feared criminal empire in known space, had been destroyed in a single night, by 6 humans. The word nightmare took on new meaning. And somewhere on Earth, 6 exhausted warriors returned home. They didn't celebrate. They didn't boast. They sat in silence, carrying the weight of what they had done. Because this was the cost of protection. This was the price of being the ones who stood in the dark. This was what it meant to be human. The galaxy was breaking apart. In the halls of the Council, species that had worked together for now shouted at each other like enemies. Some demanded that humanity be expelled from galactic civilization. Others wanted them destroyed before they grew too powerful. And still others, quietly, secretly, sent messages to Earth asking for protection. The fall of the Syndicate had changed everything. For centuries, the great powers had maintained balance through fear of each other. The Dominion had the largest fleet. The Hegemony had the strongest soldiers. They had the most advanced technology. None of them were powerful enough to conquer the others, so peace held. But now there was humanity, a small species with a small territory and no great fleet. Yet they had destroyed an empire in a single night without firing a ship's weapon. They had proven that all the fleets and armies in the galaxy meant nothing against warriors who could walk through walls like ghosts. The old balance was gone, and fear filled the empty space it left behind. High Admiral of the Dominion stood before the Council. His species was ancient and proud, with scales of deep blue and eyes that burned like stars. For 5,000 years, that had been the greatest military power in the galaxy. They had never been defeated. "The situation is simple," said, his voice booming through the chamber. "Humanity has demonstrated capabilities that threaten the security of every species in this council. Their special forces can bypass any defense, assassinate any leader, destroy any government." He turned to face the human ambassador, a calm woman named Sarah. "We demand that all human special operations personnel be surrendered to a joint council force for evaluation and containment. Their weapons, training methods, and equipment must be shared with the council for the safety of all species." Ambassador stood slowly. She was small compared to the admiral most humans were, but she showed no fear. "And if we refuse? Then the united fleets of the council will enforce compliance," growled. "Even humans cannot fight the entire galaxy." A murmur ran through the chamber. Many species nodded in agreement. Yes, this was the answer. Force humanity to give up their nightmares. Return to the old balance, the old peace. Ambassador smiled. "I'll bring your demands to my government," she said, "but I think you should know something first." "What?" "The last species that threatened us was you saw what happened to them." She gathered her data pads and headed for the door. "I hope you choose more wisely." 3 days passed. The council waited for humanity's response. Admiral spent those days preparing his forces. He commanded 10,000 warships, the largest fleet in the galaxy. He had conquered 100 worlds. He had crushed every enemy that had ever faced. He was not afraid of humans. On the third night, he retired to his private quarters in the military complex on there. It was the most secure building on the most protected planet in the Dominion. 3 levels underground, surrounded by guards, sealed behind doors that could withstand a nuclear blast. He poured himself a drink and sat in his chair. "Hello, Admiral." Spun around, reaching for his weapon. A human woman stood in the corner of his room, completely at ease, as if she belonged there. "Captain Vance." "How?" demanded. His hand trembled over his sidearm. "How did you get in here? The guards, the sensors, The guards are fine," said. "They didn't see me. Neither did your sensors, your cameras, or your security drones. I've been here for 6 hours." 6 hours. She had been in his room for 6 hours, and he never knew. "If you kill me, the Dominion will burn your worlds to ash." "I'm not here to kill you," Admiral stepped forward slowly. Her hands were empty, but somehow that made her more frightening. "I'm here to deliver a message." She held out a data pad, took it with shaking hands. The screen showed names, hundreds of names, locations, personal information, security details. "What is this?" "Every flag officer in the Dominion, every general, every admiral, every commander of significance, their home addresses, their family members, the gaps in their security, the routes they take to work." His blood ran cold. "We've been watching you for years," continued. "Not because we wanted war, but because we wanted to be ready if war came to us. We know everything about your military leadership, and we know how to reach them." "This is a threat." "No, this is information. The threat is what I'm about to say." She moved closer. Despite himself, stepped back. "Humanity doesn't want war. We don't want your territory. We don't want your power. We just want to live in peace and protect those who can't protect themselves." "Then give up your special forces. Accept council oversight." "That's not going to happen." His gray eyes were calm and cold. "Our operators are our protectors. They're the reason they are free. They're the reason they can't prey on the weak anymore. We will never give them up." "Then we have nothing to discuss." "Actually, we do," smiled, and it sent a chill down spine. "Here's what's going to happen if the council attacks us. We won't fight your fleets. We won't defend our planets with ships and soldiers. We'll do what we did to the—" She pointed at the data pad in his hands. "We'll come for everyone on that list. Every admiral who gives orders to attack us. every general who commands troops against us, every politician who votes for war. You can't, there are too many. There were 300 on Helix 9. We took them in 12 minutes. There were 7 warlords on, protected by 12,000 soldiers. We killed them in one night, she shrugged. We have hundreds of teams, Admiral, thousands of operators. How many leaders do you have? Scales had gone white. He tried to find words, but his voice failed him. We won't fight your war, said softly. We'll end it, one name at a time, one visit at a time. You'll never see us coming. You'll never know when we're there. You'll just wake up one morning to find that everyone who wanted war is gone. She walked toward the door, a door that had been locked and sealed. Wait, managed. How do I know you're telling the truth? How do I know you have this capability? Paused, she looked back over her shoulder. Admiral, I walked into the most secure room on your most protected planet, and you never knew I was here. I've been listening to your conversations for 6 hours. I've eaten food from your kitchen. I could have killed you 100 times. She opened the door as if the locks didn't exist. If you need more proof than that, you're not as smart as your reputation suggests. She left. The door closed behind her, stood alone in his quarters, holding a data pad full of death sentences. In the morning, he called an emergency meeting of the High Command. He showed them the data pad. He told them what had happened. The ultimatum was withdrawn within 6 hours. Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly. The Dominion, the greatest military power in known space, had backed down, without a shot being fired, without a single ship being lost. Some species were relieved, others were terrified, and still others, the weak and oppressed, the victims of pirates, enslavers, and conquerors, felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Ambassador returned to the council the next day. The chamber was quieter than before. No one shouted. No one made threats. My government has considered your demands, she said calmly. We respectfully decline. However, we want to make our position clear. She looked around at the assembled species. Humanity has no interest in conquest. We have no desire to rule the galaxy or dominate other species. We only want to live in peace. She paused. But we will protect the innocent. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. And anyone who threatens the people under our care will face consequences. What kind of consequences? A counselor asked. Ambassador smiled. The kind that visit you at night. No one challenged humanity again. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, Viper Team continued their watch. They were not conquerors. They were not monsters. They were nightmares, but only for those who preyed on the helpless. For everyone else, they were the greatest comfort the galaxy had ever known. The ones who watched over them while they slept. 10 years had changed the galaxy. The great slave markets of the Outer Rim had closed, one by one, as whispers spread of what happened to those who traded in lives. Pirates who once terrorized shipping lanes now kept to the empty spaces, too afraid to attack ships that might be under human protection. Warlords who had ruled through fear learned a new kind of terror, the terror of wondering if tonight would be the night shadows came for them. It was not peace exactly. The galaxy was too old and too complicated for true peace, but it was something close, something better than it had been before. Counselor sat in her chambers, watching a news broadcast from a colony. Children played in clean streets. Adults worked in markets that had not existed a decade ago. They were thriving now, their population growing, their culture flourishing. They were one of many species that had found safety under humanity's quiet protection. They call them guardians now, her assistant said, a young named Haz. The children, they're taught stories about the human shadows who saved their parents. And what do they call them in those stories? Asked. Nightmares, but not their nightmares. The nightmares of evil, of those who hurt the innocent. Nodded slowly. She had lived for 900 years. She had seen empires rise and fall, had watched species destroy themselves and others. In all that time, she had never seen anything quite like humanity. They were terrifying and gentle, deadly and kind. They could destroy an empire in a single night, yet they asked for nothing in return. They wanted no territory, no tribute, no worship, only the chance to protect those who needed protecting. She still didn't fully understand them. She suspected no one ever would. On a small human colony world called New Eden, a young historian named N sat across from an old man in a small kitchen. His name was Cole, and 30 years ago he had been Sergeant Cole of Viper Team. Now he was retired, his hair white, his body worn by time and old wounds. But his eyes were still sharp. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with me," N said, her recorder active on the table between them. "My research is about the human special forces and their impact on galactic society." Cole nodded slowly. He had a cup of coffee in his hands, the steam rising in gentle curls. Outside, rain fell on a peaceful garden. "Ask your questions." "The galaxy calls your operators nightmares. Does that name bother you?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the rain grew heavier. "It bothered me at first," he admitted. "We spent our whole careers trying to be invisible, trying to do our jobs without anyone knowing we existed. Then suddenly the whole galaxy knows about us, and they're terrified." "Were they wrong to be terrified?" "No," Cole's voice was soft but firm. "We're dangerous, make no mistake about that. What we can do, what we were trained to do. If we wanted to cause harm, the galaxy would have every reason to fear us." "But you don't want to cause harm." "We never did." He looked at his coffee, his eyes distant, seeing memories she could never share. "Every operator I ever knew, every man and woman who served beside me, none of us enjoyed the killing. We did it because someone had to, because there were innocent people suffering and we had the skills to help them." And leaned forward. "They would disagree. They would say you murdered their leaders, destroyed their empire." "They kept slaves. They murdered 40,000, including children. They had been terrorizing the galaxy for 500 years. Cole's voice hardened. "We didn't start that fight. We ended it. Some say humanity is too powerful now, that no one can stand against you." "They're not wrong." Cole looked up at her, and for a moment she saw the warrior he had been, the one who had walked through an empire's defenses like they didn't exist. "But power isn't the question. The question is what you do with it." "And what did humanity do with it?" "We protected people. We stopped slavers. We punished those who preyed on the weak. And when we were done, we went home." He smiled, and suddenly he looked like a kind old man again. "That's the part the galaxy never understood. They thought we wanted something, territory, resources, control. They couldn't believe that we just wanted to help." And sat with that for a moment. "Why? Why does humanity feel this need to protect others?" Cole thought about the question. It was a good one, and it deserved a real answer. "I think it's because we remember what it was like to be helpless," he said finally. "Our history is full of suffering. Wars, plagues, disasters. We've been the victims and the oppressors. We've seen the worst of what people can do to each other." He set down his coffee. "And I think, deep down, we made a choice. We said, never again. Never again would we let the strong prey on the weak without consequence. Never again would we turn away from people who needed help. Even at the cost of becoming nightmares. Especially at that cost." Cole's voice was quiet but certain. "Someone has to stand in the dark. Someone has to be the thing that monsters fear. We chose to be that someone. And the weight of it, the things you've done." Cole was silent for a long time. The rain continued to fall outside. "Every operator carries weight," he said finally. "The faces of people we couldn't save, the names of people we had to kill, the missions that went wrong, the friends we lost." His hands trembled slightly. "I still dream about them. Every night for 30 years I've dreamed about them. The ones who died in my arms. The ones I killed up close. The sounds, the smells, the last words people say before the end. Anne felt her heart ache for this old man. How do you live with it? Cole looked up at her, and there were tears in his eyes. I think about the ones we saved. The slaves on Helix 9 who went home to their families. The children who grew up free because we acted. The colonies that never had to fear again because we made the monsters afraid. He wiped his eyes. The weight never goes away, but it gets lighter when I remember why we carried it. Anne turned off her recorder. This interview was over, but she had one more question, a personal one. What do you want people to remember about human special forces? Cole stood slowly, his old bones protesting. He walked to the window and looked out at the rain, at the peaceful world he had helped create. Remember that we were human, he said. Not monsters, not machines. Human beings who chose to sacrifice our own peace so others could have theirs. He turned back to her. Remember that nightmares can protect as well as terrify. And remember that the darkness isn't always evil. Sometimes, it's where the guardians wait. Far across the galaxy on a world, a child lay in her bed, afraid of the dark. Her mother sat beside her, stroking her delicate wings. I'm scared, the child whispered. What if the bad ones come? The bad ones won't come here, her mother assured her. How do you know? The mother smiled and pointed at the window, at the stars beyond. Do you remember the stories about the shadows who saved our people? The nightmares. Yes, the human nightmares. They watch over us, little one. They protect us while we sleep. But they're scary. Only to the bad ones. The mother tucked the blankets closer. To us, they're guardians. They stand in the darkness so we can live in light. They carry the weight of terrible things so we never have to. The child thought about this. So the nightmares are good. The best kind of good. The kind that doesn't need to be seen. The kind that protects without asking for thanks. The child closed her eyes, no longer afraid. I hope I never meet them, she said sleepily. Her mother kissed her forehead. If you never meet them, little one, it means they've done their job. It means you've always been safe. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere among them, in the darkness between worlds, human operators continued their eternal watch. They were nightmares. They were guardians. They were the reason children could sleep peacefully in a dangerous galaxy. And that was enough. That was everything. The end.